I'm currently a student enrolled at the Sir Potter College of Education. And my philosophy as an educator is that all children should be given the opportunity to achieve their fullest potential. You see, children have the gift of youth and thus the strength to engage in most activities. I will strive to ensure that every child that enters the classroom that I command leaves being made more virtuous, honest, responsible, compassionate, and competent than when they entered. I will employ various strategies such as setting effective classroom expectation limits, being aware of the causes of students' behavior, inviting parents to actively participate in their child's education by having them volunteer for various activities, and also seeing that they attend PTA meetings. I will also strive to make learning fun and interactive for my students by converting worksheets into games, lessons into experiments, and creating attractive and stimulating visual aids. As an educator, I intend to challenge my students' ability to grasp and develop concepts by providing opportunities for them to develop their critical thinking skills. I will strive to integrate technological tools into lessons and also seek to develop a personal and meaningful relationship with my students so that I may properly understand each of them and thus meet their learning needs where possible. Each lesson was carefully crafted based on the teacher's philosophy and with the student's cognitive and affective level and ability in mind. These 4 lessons employed various teaching strategies such as gamification, explicit instruction, effective questioning techniques, visualization, cooperative learning, etc., which facilitated stimulation, critical thinking, collaboration, and fun during the teaching and learning process for each student. Information and communication technology was also employed to allow students to monitor and manage their own learning, think critically and creatively, solve simulated real-world problems, work collaboratively, engage in ethical decision-making, and adopt a global perspective towards issues and ideas. Blended e-learning. In creating and integrating this approach, the teacher was tasked with embedding face-to-face instructions along with web-based techniques such as asynchronous learning and other instructional tools, some of which included the Jamboard, Edmodo, Storyboard app, Animoto app, etc., into the lesson. This worked well for most students since it provided them with more control over their own learning experience, which allowed them to remain engaged while at the same time allowing for the teacher to give attention to those who needed it. This approach, however, required a lot of planning and caused the teacher to feel overworked. It also prevented strict controls, which meant students could plagiarize their work by simply cutting and pasting information from online rather than doing actual research and then summarizing their thoughts. Synchronous distance learning. This teaching approach required the teacher to create and utilize various online platforms, such as Google Classroom, Zoom, Facebook, Edmodo, WhatsApp, etc. Students' information had to be gathered and they were then enrolled or added to the teaching platform, and timings for the various online sessions were timetabled. A dry run of the virtual classroom software and tools that were going to be used was done. The teacher then used the aforementioned platforms to try to best replicate the feel of the in-class environment. This approach provided a means for the teacher to communicate with the students and provide real-time learning opportunities to them. It also allowed for the teacher to provide a very structured learning environment for the students since, in most cases, clear guidance was given which helped to control the pace of learning. This approach, however, relied too heavily on technology and was therefore a hindrance to those students who either had poor internet connectivity or did not have access to the necessary device or devices needed for this type of learning to be effective. Online collaborative approach. In order to make the online collaborative learning approach possible, the teacher created various breakout rooms, WhatsApp groups, etc. that provided a space where students could collaborate on group projects and discussions during the learning sessions. Other online tools such as Jamboard, Google Docs, and Google Slides were also employed so as to allow students to easily build on each other's work in a presentation. The teacher then made various video recording applications available so that students could record videos to show their learning progress during the conclusion of the lesson, and then have their classmates comment or make response videos. One difficulty that was faced when using this teaching approach is that many of the students' responses were delayed due to poor internet connectivity, which in turn caused misunderstanding and confusion between students who were grouped during some of the online sessions. Inquiry-based learning. To create and integrate this teaching approach, the teacher had to research numerous methods that would encourage students to build knowledge through exploration, experience, and discussion. Once the necessary methods and materials were gathered, the teacher engaged students by encouraging them to explore various teaching materials and come to their own conclusions. They were encouraged to ask questions relating to the experiments they had conducted, and they were also encouraged to share their ideas using strategies such as think, pair, share, and brainstorming as a group. So, rather than the teacher telling the students what they needed to know, they were allowed to make their own discovery, with the teacher, the various materials, and experiments acting as a guide to them. This teaching approach was easy on the teacher, partly because it transferred some of the responsibilities from the teacher to the students. This releasing of responsibilities caused a surge in student engagement, since students were given the chance to explore the topic more deeply and learn from their own first-hand experiences. It has been said that we retain 75% of what we do compared to the 5% of what we hear and the 10% of what we read. The result of this teaching approach proved this saying to be true, since students' retention level drastically increased. One drawback of using this teaching approach is that it requires students to speak up and participate. Now, for the most part, this is a good thing. However, the teacher noticed that some students, particularly those who are not quick thinkers or who suffer from learning disabilities and processing issues, were somewhat embarrassed because of their inability to keep up with those who are independent learners.